I realized that some of my clients, their issue is actually not just that it's a mindset or psychological issue. Even though that is going on, there was something else. I had some personal health issues that only functional medicine was able to help me resolve. So I had to find something more natural to work with because I couldn't take a lot of medications. So I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. I want to study this because I could see how it could actually help my clientele. So I went back to school and I am able to put all of those together to understand why sometimes a person is not getting the success that they want, not because their mindset is not in place, not because they don't have the ability. Their motivation might actually be impacted negatively because their brain and their bodies are not as resourced to help them achieve what they want.
Welcome to She Coaches Coaches, the podcast where we have thoughtful, honest conversations about what it really takes to build a thriving coaching business. I'm your host, Candy Motzek, and before building my business, I spent years as a senior corporate leader. Now, today, I work with coaches who are smart, well-trained, and deeply capable, and who want clarity about how to grow in a way that feels aligned and financially sustainable. On this show, I sit down with successful coaches to explore the real decisions behind their success, how they got started, what shifted as they grew, and the mindset and business choices that helped them gain momentum without burning out. Whether you're early in your coaching journey or refining a business you've already built, She Coaches Coaches is here to offer perspective, confidence, and grounded insight to support your next chapter. To learn more about how I work with people, go to my website, stepintosuccessnow.com. And now let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. I am so excited that you're here today, and I have a wonderful guest for you. Her name is Dr. Abiola, and she is the founder of ONA Wellness Group, and she's the creator of Empowered Entrepreneurs, which focuses on helping business owners, founders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and executives build leadership capacity at the biological level. Her work centers on the infrastructure beneath performance, energy systems, brain function, metabolic stability, recovery, and embodied confidence, and how these directly shape decision quality, visibility, and sustainable growth. Through advanced epigenetics and biomarker testing, personalized health strategies, and restorative therapy, she helps high performing individuals restore clarity, stabilize energy, reduce chronic stress, and build the biological foundation needed for sustained success, longevity, and peak leadership performance. Her work is not about doing more, it's about developing the capacity to achieve more. Dr. Abiola, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you very much for having me. I am so happy to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Tell me, what are you most excited about right now in your work?
I am most excited right now, like in my work, in the transformation that we witness with our clientele and just how we go from burnout to very resourced and how people are just killing it in their work and in their businesses. It's amazing to me just how quickly things can change, and having the opportunity to watch that and be part of that transformation for people is like, it's the best high for me and it lights me up and I'm super excited about that.
A life of service, right? Tell me, give me an example, either a client or someone that you know that has gone through this process. I just love to hear more about it.
Yeah. So I have a few examples. So I'm just gonna pick one. So we primarily work with, business owners along, the spectrum, entrepreneur, solopreneur, executives. But I'm fortunate enough that while we do have like a broad spectrum, we get a lot of women that come. And one woman, she wasn't even sure that she had like a metabolic issue, with what was going on with her. She just came and she complained about how she would wake up and she would just feel like she didn't want to make her calls, like talk to her clients today. And she had so many reasons to do everything else other than make that call or, have that coaching session and just a conversation, even prospecting. She didn't feel like doing it. So she would do something else in the house or go run an errand. There was always something else. And as we were talking, she stumbled upon my information by accident. I think it was serendipity that just brought us together. And she said, okay. I've never heard of this. Let's talk. And as we were talking, and I said, those are clues actually from your body and your brain that you are not at capacity, that something is going on. It doesn't always show up as not able to get out of bed. It gets to that point for some people. And I said, but the procrastination, the excuses, I think this is a better thing to do instead of this are also clues to biological incapacitation that is occurring within the body. And she's like, wow, that's interesting. So we were able to actually map out what was going on. We did some tests to understand better how everything is happening under the surface. And from there, we were able to pinpoint some of the areas that she needed to focus on first. And long story short, a few months later, she went from struggling and trying to make herself do the work in her business to making $300,000 more than what she was making in her business because she had the resources and it just freed her up. And one of the things she said was, I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. Like I am actually able to do everything now without the burnout, without needing to procrastinate. And she's not even tired with the work because it's happening a lot more organically and better. Like her brain and her body are supporting her instead of finding ways to work against her because they don't have the energy to give her work.
I love this that you said clues, like that word clues really stuck with me. And
Mm.
so often we're just so busy, we don't take time to look
Right,
at the clues. And,
right,
and as you were describing that client, many people would say, oh, it's a mindset issue. But you
right.
had a different perspective on this. And I'm not saying it's not ever a mindset
Yes,
issue,
correct.
right?
Yeah,
But
yes,
it's an and there
right.
might be something else going on, right?
Exactly.
So, how did you come to this work? It's a very different field than most of the guests that I speak with.
Yes. So my background is so I started out in psychology and then moved into, applied neuroscience and then functional medicine, clinical nutrition, immunotherapy, energy. So I've studied everything that I could conceive of in terms of like health and well-being and really helping myself. And I wanted to just be a psychologist and I just wanted to work on people's brains. But in my work, I realized that some of my clients, their issue is actually not just that it's a mindset or psychological issue, even though that is going on, there was something else. And so because of my personal reason venturing into functional medicine, I had some personal health issues that only functional medicine was able to help me resolve because I react very negatively to a lot of pharmaceuticals. So I had to find something more natural to work with because I couldn't take a lot of medications. So I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. I want to study this because I could see how it could actually help my clientele. So I went back to school, clinical nutrition, functional medicine, etc. And I am able to put all of those together to understand why sometimes a person is not getting the success that they want, not because their mindset is not in place, not because they don't have the ability. Their motivation might actually be impacted negatively because their brain and their bodies are not as resourced to help them achieve what they want. So as I incorporated that into my work and started helping people looking at that, I came up with what I call metabolic leadership. And there are several pillars that we evaluate a person's business from. So looking at it from a metabolic business perspective, we look at their nutrition, we look at their physical capacity, their brain health, their sleep, nervous system regulation. It runs the gamut. And that is how I came up with that, is from my own personal experience, as well as the experience and my interaction with what I'm experiencing with my clientele.
Wow. I can imagine that there are thousands of people that could use this service.
Yeah,
Really an interesting thing. Looking forward, what do you think is possible for entrepreneurs and leaders with this new lens that you have?
yeah, I see that our, business is going to be done in such a way that we have to look within first. Like, we have to look at ourselves first, because when I was doing my classes in organizational leadership and organizational psychology, one of the things we talk about is the human capital. But looking at the human capital from a metabolic perspective is so important that we sometimes forget that if we are not as resourced as we need to be biologically, business stops, work stops, and we cannot achieve what we are actually intending to achieve. So I think that is going to be what's going to fuel, the business world. And as a matter of fact, it's funny that you asked the question, because that's a premise that I focus on. And I put together like a little ebook for people to download, called the Metabolic Mastery Blueprint. You can get it from our website. But I am also diving deeper into that with people to say, you need to look at all of these areas, because that's what's going to drive business growth and success. And I hope that in the near future, that more people in business are looking at that for themselves and for their business growth.
It reminds me of years ago, nobody ever would have had a personal trainer. And now,
Right,
so many people do. And then there was people who didn't have a nutritionist or didn't have
right,
a therapist, and now they do. It's like this is sort of a new frontier in a way,
right.
I think, right?
Yes, yes, it is now. So you have that background, and then you can have your nutritionist help you in the way that you want to be helped, or have a better personal trainer approach. And sometimes it's simple as even what we need to do with our food and what is our body requiring in that moment in time. But we're able to tie that into business growth and development, because a lot of our clientele, they can see the directional causation of optimized metabolic function and increased revenue in their business.
Right. And that's exactly like the story you shared with us earlier.
Yes.
Shift a little bit to the concept of success. Now, granted, each of us has our own definition of success, and it changes depending on the season of
Correct.
life we're in.
Yeah.
But for you, what is one idea that changed how you think about success and your success specifically?
So I mentioned earlier that I, had some personal struggles myself, like with my health. I've been in business, in one way, shape, or form since age 13, because I wanted to have my own money, and not ask my parents for money all the time. So this side hustle, this little gig, that even all throughout, college, working, being in the military, I always had something on the side. But I hit a point where I was so focused on everything else that I didn't focus on my health, and everything practically came to a standstill. And that was the thing that caused me to make the change. As I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to help people with their minds and just, their psyche. And then my personal health issue was like, you can't really do that if you don't have these things taken care of. So caused me to have that pivot, find someone to help me who happened to be a functional medicine practitioner. And then that got me into, oh, this is really awesome. I want to study this. And then I went back to school, and on and on and on, just doing that, to where I know that if I had not put the focus on my health and my well being, I would not have a business. I don't even know if I would still be here because of the health problems that I had. They were bad enough to where they could have, ended my existence.
Wow. So you have had such a journey. Is there a place where you can share like something that you learned about yourself and who you are and your purpose in life? Like, what have you learned about yourself through doing this work?
Limitless, am resourceful. And I think one thing that so I'm talking about metabolic leadership here, but my company, my business, we actually are multifaceted in our approach. And I think how I am now and my body being resourced has allowed me to blossom into all of those areas to where I recognize that unlimited ability within myself and in what I am capable of and the potential that I have. It also is a little bit, weird in that I come up with more ideas than I can handle. That's
The
one
mark
of the
of a
things.
true visionary.
I'm like, you better watch out because once you're firing on all cylinders, like my client said, you start creating and you're like, okay, let me slow down and let me, do it this way. But the slowing down is not from that I can't do it. It's from, let me do this first and then I can get to that next step, which made me to realize that I, as a human being, that I am limitless, that there is so much that I can accomplish within short amount of time. That's what that's shown me is that I can get a lot accomplished in a very short amount of time. Sometimes people say to me, they're like, well, you must sleep only 4 hours. And I said, no, I actually sleep 8.5 hours. I'm like, I sleep, and I still get a lot, accomplished in a short amount of time, just like everybody else. And I'm not tired and I can keep going. And then when it's time to go to sleep, I'm out.
It's like you have a whole additional life available to you, right?
Yes. Like one time, one of my teachers, she's like, I think you're living four lives at the same time. And I said, no, it's just one. But sometimes I joke with people and I said, I also have a little, well, not a little, I have attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. And that's actually what led me into studying my brain and moving from psychology to neuroscience because I wanted to understand myself. And
Mm.
so my personal experiences in the impetus that's fueled a lot of this.
Yes. Yeah. There's just such a wide variety of people who are neurotypical.
Yes.
And I'm learning more and more about that over
Yeah.
time. I've had some
Yeah.
amazing guests who have talked about that. And I'm like, I never thought about it in that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank goodness for brain scans. That's why when I said, let me scan your brain and I can, do a map and see what's going on. And you're like, oh, that's why you're different. That's what's going on. And let's turn that into your genius because I see it as, a genius, thing for all of us, people who are not typical and who are very neurodivergent. And neurodivergence is on so many, layers. And sometimes people confuse that for, okay, that means I have a problem. That means there is, an inability to accomplish, where I see it as actually a superpower that we can tap into. Because when I figured out that, oh, I've got my hands in so many things, and thank goodness for my parents for just allowing me to get involved in so many different activities when I was growing up, instead of saying, sit down, because I could not sit still. I'm in my 50s, I still have a hard time sitting still. I just can't. I can't do it. And so I'm like, oh, this is me. That's just, and let me turn that into, a skill set and let that become something that is actually fueling me instead of something that is impeding my ability to perform and achieve.
I love that. And the self acceptance that goes along with that. One last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What idea do you hope that listeners carry away after listening to this conversation? What's that one thing?
As a human, you are limitless. You may have some things, maybe challenges. I don't even want to call them obstacles that are impeding you and sort of like in the way of getting what you want. But instead of it being an obstacle or, a challenge, look at it as an opportunity to explore, to actually understand, because I believe that whatever concern or issue that we have is something that is calling us to something greater. And with it comes the answer. We just need to look for that answer. So that would be, one idea. And the next one would be that we spend some time exploring and how to take care of ourselves so we can be all that we can be. I got that from my army days. I was in the army.
I know.
When I
It
was in the
sticks with
army,
you.
be all that you can be. And I'm like, yeah, I can. I don't like the new one that they had, the being an army of one. And I was like, no, I want to be all I can be. Yeah.
So, as we wrap up, Dr. Abiola, there are people who have heard you talk. Tell me, how can they find out more about you? And I know you have a free gift to share with them. Tell us.
Yes. So I am all over the interwebs. And so, but one of our websites is theempoweredentrepreneur.net, www.theempoweredentrepreneur.net. We are there. You will see our pictures there. And our free gift is actually Metabolic Business Health Score. And even though it is targeted at people in business, we have a lot of individuals who are not in business who take it. It gives you an opportunity to actually find out where you are not as resourced as you can be, and you get tips on how to improve that.
Thank you so much. All
Yeah,
right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me this time. And thank you, Dr. Abiola, for joining
my
us as
pleasure.
well. I
Thank
have
you.
very much enjoyed this conversation and I learned a lot. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye bye. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to reflect on what stood out and how it connects to where you are right now. Coaching businesses grow through clarity and thoughtful choices, not pressure or hustle. If you'd like more support, you can learn more at stepintosuccessnow.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with a peer or colleague who would enjoy it as well. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.